The streets are talking. You are now listening to The Box Out, Tri-State area basketball talk at its best. And now your hosts, Kahlil Thomas and Jason Cordner. Let's get it.
From NJ to BK and the world, this is The Box Out here in the One Podcast Network YouTube channel. My name is Kahlil Thomas. Joining me in just a few minutes will be Jason Cordner from Brooklyn, New York. We are in NBA playoff season. We are back, and we start with the Knicks, the opening tip of the show. And I have to say this about the Knicks off the top. Jalen Brunson coming into the series is essentially a marked man for the Sixers last night, right? The idea was, and everyone kind of knew what they were going to do. Everyone kind of knew what the strategy was going to be. Take Jalen Brunson out of the equation for the Knicks and force other people to beat Philadelphia. I think that was the idea. That was going into it. That was what Philly were going to do. That was their plan off the top. Get him to beat us, or get other people to beat us and take him out. I will say, watching the game last night, and you already knew that was going to happen. In the back of my mind, you were like, okay, who's going to step up for this team, for the Knicks? Because you have so many different parts. Obviously, Julius Randle is out for the season. He's not part of the equation. So the question then became, okay, will it be Dante DiVincenzo? Will it be OG Anunoby? Would it be Josh Hart? Would it be someone else that stepped up and kind of took the pressure off of Jalen Brunson? Because, Brunson was going to try to get his shots no matter what, but Philly came into the game doubling him and, just running him down and forcing him to tough shots. And on defense, just having him run around picks. So one where they not only D'ing him up really, really great. On the defensive end, he had to do a lot of movement, and there's a lot of picks. He guarded Maxey a lot. There's a lot of picks around Tobias Harris, around Joel Embiid, who we'll get to in a second. Brunson just looked exhausted. DiVincenzo did not have a great shooting game. So automatically, those two are out, and you're looking like, okay, who's going to be it for this team? Right? You already know Tom Thibodeau is going to go over a very short bench because that's what he does in the playoffs. His rotation regular season is 9 players. If we're lucky as fans, you might see 10 players from the Knicks play in one game. But usually it's 9. In this series, you knew it was going to slink down to like 8. And if worst case scenario went there, 7. So last night he went 8. So you know you're going 8 deep. Who's going to be the guy that is going to pick up the slack for Jalen Brunson, who honestly didn't play terribly? He still had 22 points. He shot 8 of 26 from the field, and a lot of those shots were tough shots. So that 8 of 26 is very misleading. I think you have to kind of take that under consideration. That 8 of 26 isn't really a true 8 of 26. You got to think about that. Lo and behold, a man that we've talked about on this podcast multiple times, that we were like, is he it? Is he that guy? We don't know. Deuce McBride played 28 minutes off the bench, 21 points off the bench. Bogdanović, 13 points. Jalen Brunson, once again, 22 points. Josh Hart, 22 points, 5 of 12 shooting, 4 of 8 from 3, which is very important because you saw Josh Hart, and early on he was really, really struggling with his shot, especially from long range. As the game kind of progressed on, Philly almost said, all right, go shoot, and started leaving him open because he's having such a hard time hitting that outside shot. And lo and behold, fourth quarter, Josh Hart started finding that shot at the best possible time for the New York Knicks to propel them to the victory. So they won game 1, Knicks up 1-0, game 2 tomorrow night, Monday night, back at the Garden. And I will say this, the bench came through huge, right? The bench came through, once again, 3 guys came with the bench, but combined, he had 42 points off the bench. And this is even with Dante DiVincenzo shooting 3 of 10, only scoring 8 points. If you would have told me Dante DiVincenzo was shot 3 for 10 from the field, and the Knicks still would have won, I would have an issue with that. If you would have told me Jalen Brunson was shot 8 of 26 from the field, I would have had a problem with that. There's a lot of different things that happened in that game last night that, honestly, you can look at that game and go, that might have been the best game the Knicks played all year. Mitchell Robinson off the bench, 8 points, 12 rebounds. More importantly, not just 12 rebounds, 7 offensive rebounds. And he D'd the hell out of Joel Embiid. As I bring in Jason Corner from Brooklyn, New York. Jay, what's going on, man?
Not much. Good weekend of basketball.
Yeah, it's hard, and it's still going. That's the thing now. I'm like, hey, we're not done. So, talk about the Knicks last night. We texted a little bit last night. Big win, considering that Brunson shot 8 of 26. Really was a non-factor throughout the whole game. What did you see last night?
I thought it was a good team effort. The bench players really stepped up. Every time Deuce went to the basket and made a shot, I was like, wow, Deuce is really the last man standing, considering everybody that we grew, the RJs, the Quickleys, the Grimes, and Deuce has really blossomed before our eyes. And it seemed like everybody knew their role. Everybody did a good job of stepping up. We had a Dojanovic sighting as well. I don't think Brunson's going to shoot like that for the rest of the series. I think it's going to take him some time to adjust to the defense that Philly's throwing at him. So that's a good sign that it was a good team effort. Embiid looks a little hobbled, but they got to have to find something to do with Maxey. Maxey looks like he's the quickest guy on the floor. Other than that, I thought it was a great win. And now Nick Nurse is going to make coaching adjustments. I just hope Tibbs kind of loosen up the reins a little bit. Maybe he might want to go, if DiVincenzo and them guys are having a bad night again, keep them on a shorter leash and just roll with your guys.
Yeah, I think that was the thing, too. Not just, I said it in the opening, not just Brunson, but DiVincenzo had a bad shooting night, too. That's why we saw so much. We saw so much of Miles McBride, which is great. But like you said, you still have Alec Burks on the bench. He's an option. I'm surprised we didn't see Precious Achiuwa. He went 8 deep, which you kind of knew that rotation was going to shrink a little bit.
Yeah.
I still prefer not for the rotation to go that deep, be that small. I feel like you're running these guys to the ground. 41 minutes for Hart, 41 minutes for Brunson. So already they're racking up the minutes. And Brunson is exhausted. Brunson looked tired after that game was over last night because he was running after guys.
Running after guys, exactly.
Running after guys, running around picks. He's getting doubled every time he touches the ball. As soon as he brings the ball past midcourt, someone's guarding him, and there's someone kind of behind that person guarding Brunson to kind of back him up. So I'm like, he's being doubled at every turn. Yep. So the Knicks had to kind of know that. Mitchell Robinson, I was talking about him before you got on, 8 points, 12 rebounds, 7 offensive, and he bodied Embiid. Embiid was very dominant early on against Hartenstein. Mitch came in and completely said, I got this. How important was Mitchell Robinson last night?
Oh, he was huge. And this is why I didn't think he was coming back in time for the playoffs. I'm glad he did. He looks healthy out there. And I kind of think Tibbs is probably going to do the same formula for game 2. Test Hartenstein out first, but then eventually it'll be a heavy dose of Mitch down the stretch.
So we had to talk about Joel Embiid and the dumbest move you could make in the playoffs. Embiid's going to the basket. He's being guarded. I think it was Mitch Robinson in the game. Someone's coming over to double down. He threw the ball off the basket and for a dunk. Came down, made the dunk, but then landed on a knee that he's been struggling with all season. So he went down. He came back in the game, but he definitely looked hobbled. Even in the play-in game before game 1, he kind of didn't look great. I think he willed himself in that fourth quarter to win that play-in game. But how big is this for Philly when Embiid was already at 75, 80%, and now you're looking at an Embiid that might be 60, 65 now?
Yeah, I definitely think he's like 60, 65 range. He's still effective because he's a great passer for a big man, so that's what's going to help them a lot. But in terms of being a low post threat, I think that's being neutralized. Now, I think Mitch Mitch is going to contest him very well. Maybe Hartenstein could probably learn a few things from the tape. I'm pretty sure that he's going to look at tomorrow. But I think it compromised him a little bit because outside of Maxey, I don't think anybody on that roster is a real threat. I mean, Kyrie Lowry is going to give you probably like 15 and keep buckets here and there. But I think as a consecutive threat, I think it's just Maxey and one-legged Embiid that you got to really worry about. And I think that's something where I think Tibbs will definitely have the guys more focused in on next game.
I think the guy that I was really scared of was Tobias Harris. He only scored 7 points yesterday, kind of a non-factor. 7 and 9, I think the stat line was. I think with Maxey, you're kind of going to get what you get with Tyrese Maxey. Maxey is the most skilled player on that team right now, obviously besides Embiid.
Right.
Maxey's going to get his points. You have to shut down Harris. You have to shut down Oubre. Make sure Buddy Hield doesn't get open. I think right now the Knicks are at this point where it's like, okay, we kind of guard Maxey as best as you could. But he's going to get his. Embiid already isn't 100%, so let's kind of figure out a defense that will make him uncomfortable. And then it's a matter of shutting every other safety valve off of that team right now.
Yeah, 100%. And I think they really did a good job overall shutting down the role players. I mean, the Knicks out bench scored them, 45 to less than 10, I believe?
Yep, 7.
Wow. So there you go.
And the Knicks out rebounded them by 22, 55-33.
I think that's going to continue. I think Embiid's hobbled. Everybody else in there doesn't look like they want any parts of the low post. So I think that's going to continue. It's all about Maxey. That's the key I think the Knicks got to worry about for game 2.
And I think the Knicks, too, you have so many. You obviously, you have Hartenstein. You have Mitch. Josh Hart's a good rebounder. OG's a good rebounder. I think if you get pressure to 2 or 5 minutes, he'll be another big man get thrown in the middle, too. So rebounding wise, like you said, I think the advantage is always going to go with the Knicks because they have such a better rebounding team than most teams in the NBA, honestly.
Right.
Going forward, other games that happened, another series. There's 2 games today that were like not even close.
They were done at first quarter.
Boston beat Miami 114-94. Everybody's afraid of Miami. When it was Miami or Philly that Knicks were going to face, I was like, I'll take either or. I don't care. I'll take Miami because of the significance of Miami, New York, and growing up and seeing that series.
People wanted the Knicks to throw that game against the Bulls. They wanted them to lose on purpose.
Yeah, but that game was over. Is Boston this good, or is it just like Miami did a play-in? Jimmy Butler's hurt, and everything just seemed off today for him.
I think it was a combination of it was a perfect storm. Jimmy's hurt. The Celtics have to look dominant, especially losing to them in the conference finals last year, the way they did. So I think it was one of those messages that the Celtics had to, from start to finish, we got to whoop on them. We got to show them we're the better team. And I think the series is going to be done in 5 at best.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like a huge Tatum had 23, Jalen Brown had 17, Porzingis had 18. It wasn't like this crazy, Tatum had 60 points. It was like a basic blowout. This is a blowout game. Boston's like, all right, we're done. 5, I think, is probably the number that you're going to get for the series. I think without Jimmy Butler, Miami loses something. And Eric Spoelstra's top 3 coach in the league. But I'm sorry, you lost your star player. And I know Miami wants to think of themselves as like a unit. And, we can just put pieces in here and there. Without Jimmy, you're stuck. And it's going to be a lot of Jaime Jaquez. And I'm sorry, Jaime Jaquez can't touch Jimmy Butler.
It's not even just Jimmy, but here's where you miss Gabe Vincent. Here's where you miss what's the name that went to Cleveland. Now this is where you miss your core shooters, where who'd probably help you stay in the game. But I think they're done.
The other game, the other blowout today, Dallas loses to the Clippers by 12. That 12 number is very misleading because this game was over early. Clippers didn't have Kawhi today. How big an issue is that? The LA was missing one of the big 3, and Dallas cannot gain any traction. How bad is that for Dallas?
I think it's pretty bad, but it's one of those things where I think Dallas will rebound from this game. But I think the Clippers, Kawhi is kind of like Randall in terms of somehow the ball stops with him a little bit. So now when him down the lineup, it feels like it really freed up Harden. Westbrook has been an unsung hero for the Clippers. He's been a model citizen since he's been over there. Paul George had a good game. I think this is where you probably get the best out of the Clippers, where they don't rely too much on Kawhi, kind of like how the Knicks don't rely on Randall. I think this is a bad omen for Dallas because they got to rebound, they got to hustle. They look real stagnant on offense. Luka's going to get his, Kyrie's going to get his, but everybody else, they're either going to have to step up and figure out a way to steal game 2, or they could be down 0-2 real quickly.
And like you said, Kyrie, 31 points. Luka, 33 points. Kyrie went to your cousin's. So explain this to me.
So I guess Kyrie went to my cousin's vegan shop and on Crenshaw, Girls on Crenshaw, and he hung out, took pictures, had some food, talked some smack about Brooklyn's management. He said he wanted to stay in Brooklyn. He said he never wanted to leave Brooklyn, but once they kind of the restrictions, and he was willing to forgive all of that. But when they didn't want to even talk about a contract extension until they wanted him to be a model citizen first, he didn't like that. So that's why he wanted out.
But I mean, this goes back to the original conversation we had after he got traded. Obviously, your time in Brooklyn was, for the lack of a better term, a shit show. So it's hard for management to go, we're going to give you $100+ million after 2 years of just nonsense. The narrative that he's trying to spin, I get, because it's a good narrative for him, and it makes him look like, I wanted to stay, they want me to go. I get that. But he knows his bullshit. He knows the narrative is bullshit, because deep down he knows that if he was management, he was an owner, and he had a player doing the same shit, he's not gonna be like, yeah, I'll give you that bag, even though, you said some anti-Semitic stuff and you kind of quit on us during COVID, and I'm sorry, that narrative, I wanted to stay, but they didn't want me, is bullshit.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I think he needs to drop that, and people need to stop. Yeah, and then, not saying your cousin did it, but your cousin's not the only person he probably told this to.
Exactly.
And in Kyrie's inner circle, they're probably like, yeah, you're right, Kyrie, yeah, just rock that sage, and it doesn't work that way. you gotta make
Nets ownership. I think Nets ownership is probably one of the most, I won't say well respected, but definitely easy, player friendly, lenient.
Mm-hmm.
There you go, perfect word.
And he was shit on him and said, sorry, I'm doing what I do, but whatever. So Clippers up 1-0 in that series. Minnesota, goddamn, Minnesota just killed Phoenix last night. Anthony Edwards went off talking smack to KD. They're up 1-0.
Old ass, you know what?
Listen, I've been very bullish on the Timberwolves all year. And obviously, Phoenix has their issues. We talk about Phoenix every week. I feel like there's no cohesiveness with that team. There's major issues with that team. Is Minnesota that good? Because they looked like they're clicking. And I feel like, I watched the game and you see who they have. I'm like, I think I've been sleeping on them. I think I've given them no respect, and I think that's my fault. And I think I have to start giving them some respect.
No, I don't think it's just that. I think what we're learning, and I'm gonna definitely keep a good eye on tonight's game in between AEW, of course. I'm gonna keep a good eye on Oklahoma, because Oklahoma, Minnesota, these are teams I barely watched all year because of the bias of the Lakers on TNT and ESPN. So I'm really curious to see how the top of the Western Conference look. We saw how Denver look. I think Denver's going to be done with the Lakers in 5 games. I'm really curious to see what Minnesota and Oklahoma brings to the table in terms of championship aspirations. I think Minnesota has a great roster. I think American-born players, because I know we talked about this before, and if you look at the MVP, they announced the finalists today, all foreign players. No surprise. Mm-hmm. I think Anthony Edwards is that next heir apparent in terms of best American product in the league right now. So I think they got a great mix of roster. When Karl Anthony Towns is healthy, he's a top 5 center in the league. So I think they're going to be done with the Suns in probably 5 to 6 games. But how fitting would it be? The Suns out in the first round. That means KD's out in the first round again. The Warriors are gone. Should that marriage have stayed together and maybe generated a couple more championships? Because it looks like the Warriors dynasty is over. And it looks like KD being a prominent player fixture could be dwindling down as well as LeBron. They both could be out in the first round.
Yeah, that's my next question. Nuggets, Lakers. I think the Nuggets wins the series in 5. I don't think there's any conversation. I think the story becomes what happens with LeBron going forward and how it works. Bruce, what's going on? Sorry, Bruce is apologizing for being late. Bruce, you're welcome whenever, man. Especially on AEW pay-per-view night. Just saying. The question would be, what do the Lakers do after the season? Because as constructed now, the team is not going to win.
Nope.
Point blank. They really don't have any room. They still have those first-round draft picks later on, but it's like, do you kind of mortgage the future for LeBron leaves to win now? And even it's been proven, all the moves you've made have been complete and utter shit. So you obviously don't know how to make the move or make the right move. So I think the Lakers are at this really weird crossroads where do you start preparing for after LeBron, or do you say we can get 1 or 2 more years out of this AD LeBron partnership and let's go all in?
I think it's done. I think you can't. I think you have to look at the top of the Eastern and Western Conference. Minnesota's young. Oklahoma's extremely young and very flexible. So whatever the Lakers think they could try to do, Oklahoma could easily counter that by making a key acquisition with all their draft capitals. So I think, and then we got Denver, the defending champs. So I think the Lakers are kind of like stuck. I think you hold on to your draft picks because I think you're about to hit rock bottom soon. If anything, I would be like, hey, listen, we got that bubble championship. We got the in-season tournament banner hanging up at Staples. Hell, even the Clippers about to move into a new arena. So that's going to take a little thunder off of, down by crypto. So I think what the Lakers need to do is come to terms of like, hey, listen, we might want to break this up before we get stuck with the bill. Well, I would try to I would try to sell the idea to LeBron, like, hey, why don't you go to Golden State? Why don't you go somewhere else and chase your last championship? Because I don't think you're going to get it here. And then you could always flip AD and start the rebuild process a little better than how, like, say, all of the Nets have to do with what they're going through right now.
Oh, jeez, don't get me started on that because that's a cluster all over the place. Right now, at the half, 69-42 Milwaukee on top of Indiana. Dame Lillard, 35 points in the first half of play. They're without Giannis right now. So, the Bucks are this series is intriguing just because of the non-Giannis factor for Milwaukee. Dame is not going to do this every single night, every single game. Like this ain't Dame of 5 years ago.
Right.
Bruce said in the chat, Indiana doesn't play a lot of defense.
They don't play defense. They play defense.
And that's what it is.
Yeah.
So I think that series can go 7. They're just back and forth ping-ponging it. At 9:30, OKC, New Orleans, they start their 1-8 matchup. I want to talk about the awards. You talked about a little bit. The award finals were announced tonight. MVP finalists, Luka Doncic, SGA, Nikola Jokic. Of those 3, who would you give the MVP to?
I would have to give it to Jokic only because he's the defending champ and he has not slowed down. It's a close race, though. I think this is probably going to be one of the closest races we had in a long time. But if I was to rank them, it'll be Jokic 1, SGH 2, and Luka 3.
Yeah, I'm looking through the award. It's not, I don't think there's any real major, the Clutch Player of the Year award makes no sense to me. So I'm like, all right, so, like, what does that mean? What is it, like, Steph, DeMar DeRozan, and SGA? I'm like, so, like, how many baskets they hit
and 2 of them are not here in the playoffs. 2 of them didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm confused. 6th man of the year, Malik Monk, Bobby Portis, Naj Reid. That's your 6th man. Rookie of the year, Chet Holmgren, Brandon Miller, Wembanyama. We know is going to Wemby, so we can kind of cut that conversation short. Most improved, Tyrese Maxey, Sengun, Kobe White. I think Kobe White, really good year for Kobe White.
Yeah,
I would push him off. Sengun had a really good year. Agreed. So I think you could make the race between Maxey and Sengun, but I really do think
I think it's Sengun by far. I don't think Maxey really made a jump. He was pretty good last year as well. So.
Yeah, I've loved Sengun for like 2 years, so I'm biased. I think Sengun is that dude. So I'm gonna go with Sengun, even though I know Maxey's gonna win it.
I feel like Doc Rivers held Maxey back, but that's a whole nother topic.
Listen, Doc is good right now. Dame is putting up 35 points in the first half, so Doc is doing really well right now. Defensive Player of the Year, Bam, Rudy Gobert, Wemby. I think that could be a kind of a horse race between the 3 of them because I think Gobert is just a perennial guy in the Defensive Player of the Year race. Yeah. Bam has become a lot as like a defensive wall all of a sudden. But Wemby's coming to the league, and it's to the point where you watch Wemby games, and it's like Nobody wants to drive the ball inside because Wemby's right there. He's so not just big, but just athletic.
Long and athletic. Yeah.
So I think that's the one I don't have a call for right now. But MVP. I'm going to go with Jokic as well. I think Jokic probably should have won it last year. So I think this is gonna be get back.
I got a good Jokic hot take. It's not from me. It's not from me, but it's from my brother whose birthday party I went to Thursday. That's why we could do the show Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
He said, and I quote, "Joker is a poor man. Rick Smith. It's just he's playing in this era compared to the 90s. If Rick Smith played in this era, he would have better numbers than Jokic." And I had to really think about it. They're both kind of slow, soundly fundamental. They both soundly fundamental.
Mm-hmm.
But Rick's had a nice jumper, and he used to give Ewing and those guys fits in the 90s. So I was like, when I put down the Hennessy, I had to think about it. I was like, he could be right.
I mean, if anything, the Hennessy probably made you think more. It probably made you like.
I think it did. It made me really think about what I think. Remember, Ewing had a couple of not offers, but he had like negative points against Smith a couple of times. But
and Smith is one of those players that like pulled Ewing out. Like Elijah did the same thing to Ewing too.
Yeah.
Like Ewing was used to being down low and body you down, but like someone like a Hakeem, someone like a Smits, they pulled Ewing out, and Ewing didn't like kind of stretching out a little bit. So I can see that. Apparently, Bruce believes that your brother's drunk.
well, he was, but I mean, that was incredible.
Listen, to pull Rick Smits out, sober or drunk, that's impressive because people forget about Rick Smits all the time. So Rick Smits is that guy. I do want to talk about the Jontay Porter ban because I think that was a huge story because there's so much conversation about betting and how kind of in bed all the NBA, the NHL, the NFL, Major League Baseball now, how much they're in bed with these betting companies, and now you have a situation where a player was actually betting through a third party, got caught, and now he's banned from the NBA. An investigation, you look at it, prior to March 20th, Porter disclosed confidential information about his own health status to an individual he knew. Placed an $80,000 parlay prop to win $1 million. He made other bets throughout the year, even back when he was in G League. So obviously the evidence was there for Jontay Porter to be banned from the NBA. My question is, was this bound to happen? Because look at Shohei. No one's talking about Shohei Ohtani right now because they kind of put the blame on the interpreter, and now Shohei's kind of in the clear. But was this bound to happen because those betting companies are just so entrenched in the sport?
Oh, for sure. Oh, it was definitely bound to happen. And I think the only reason the baseball, I think they couldn't afford to have him gone. They couldn't afford to him to be the casualty of that. But Porter, a G leaguer who made it to the league, he's not as popular as his brother. So it's one of those things where he got caught, he got sloppy. And it's one of those, I think we're going to see more stories of this come down the line with players who not make top tier players who know better than, to risk losing a lot of money. But I think this is I hope he still gambles after this. That's what I hope. Being an insider, I hope he still has a great eye for the game. Someone should give him a podcast, but I think he'll be fine. But I think it's definitely we're gonna see more stories like this. Not just in the NBA, but I think other sports. I think even college basketball or football, we might see something like this come down the pipe.
When the NFL had it, the NFL suspended 10 guys last year and said,
but they didn't ban them. They
didn't ban them. They did the whole season. I know Calvin Ridley got suspended for the whole year 2 years ago, and they suspended guys for the year, a certain amount of games, and I think 2 of those guys actually got reinstated recently, so they're back in the league now. But even the NFL rules you can't make bets on team property.
Right.
You can't so. The NFL is almost you could bet, but don't do it here. If we catch you at work doing it,
right,
we're going to get you. So the NFL is telling guys, it is what it is, right? Do you. Don't bet on the sport. Don't bet on your team, and do it away from work. If you can do it at home. So that's the NFL thing I have less sympathy for because those guys are just being stupid and bet at work. That's like me being at work while I'm trying to teach and me betting the under on some Australian rules football, some shit. And I'm like, what are we doing?
This is the problem. the problem with WNBA having games on during school days, but that's a whole nother story.
That is true. 13 bets at NBA games using an online betting account from an associate. These bets ranged in size from $15 to $22,000 for a total of $54,000. Total payout from these bets were $76,000, resulting in net winnings of about $22,000 almost. None of the bets involved any game in which Porter played. 3 of the bets were multi-game parlay bets that included one Raptors game in which Porter bet the Raptors would lose. All 3 bets lost. So he's not even kind of good at basketball stuff. It's like he's good at like betting on rugby, not actual NBA shit.
Wow, that's unfortunate.
So Dante Porter's out. Michael Porter still hurt about it, but he'll get over it. He'll hook him up with a job or something. WNBA Draft last Monday. I watched it. 2.2 million people watched it, which is huge for WNBA watching the draft. Caitlin Clark, obviously big news, number 1. I want to say this, and I want to get right into the Caitlin Clark conversation before we go into the rest of the draft. You listen to Bomani Jones. Bomani Jones had Dominic Foxworth on his podcast on Fridays, Foxworth Fridays. You heard what Diana Taurasi said during the national championship game. There is some, I'm not going to say hate, but she's getting her own signature shoe from Nike. I didn't realize this until I heard it and I read about it. There's 3 signature shoes in WNBA, and all the shoes are from white players.
I was just going to say 2 of them are on Liberty, but you got to go there.
I went there, and I honestly went there not to make the point of that, but I for full disclosure, I had to make the point. I don't think it's a race thing now. I think it's more of a you didn't pay your dues thing. Because what Taurasi said during the championship game about it's going to get harder. And I feel like a lot of the players in the league are starting to gun for her.
Oh, that first off the pick. Oh, my goodness. She's going to get
So if you look at it from the color issue, and you look at it from she hasn't done anything. She didn't win that. She didn't win a natty. So we're hyping her up, and she didn't really win. Why is she so polarizing? Why is she just like? Is it because she's really good? Is it because she kind of held on college? Like I'm trying to figure out the why behind either you love Caitlin Clark or you have an issue with Caitlin Clark.
See, I'm on the fence with I don't. By far, I do not think it's a race thing, and I don't think people are making it a race thing. I look at it as a Jordan LeBron debate. I think Michael Jordan's the greatest basketball player ever, but I think LeBron is the best ambassador and probably had the greatest career ever in terms of longevity and what he brought to the game and has respect for the game. I think what Caitlin's doing, she's bringing so much eyeballs to the women's sport that I think the others like Diana Taurasi and them are a little jealous that they didn't do that first. And when it comes to the WNBA, now you got all these new eyeballs that's going to watch it because of her. It goes back to Larry Bird and Magic Johnson back in the 70s, where they came in. The NBA was on tape delay. They came in and kind of changed that, and then Jordan built on that. So I think it's not just Caitlin Clark, but I think it's her draft class. This might be reminiscent of the '96 draft class for the NBA, where I think she's a transcendent player, but she's not the only one in this draft class. So I think the league's in great hands, and I'm kind of curious to see what the old dogs have in store for her. But I think Caitlin, a lot of them will rise to the occasion, and I think what she's doing, it should be applauded. It's kind of like Steph Curry and the 3-point shot. What he did to really have everybody out there shooting threes in the playgrounds, want to be like Steph. She's doing it for the female side. So it's one of those things where it's the perfect storm where, yes, she's white, but she's a damn good ball player and very fundamentally sound, where we talked about earlier with the men. A lot of guys nowadays are not fundamentally sound, and that's why, we have the Jokic and we have all the foreigners dominant. It's good to see a natural American product that's about to take the WNBA storm. And kudos to all those teams that, outside the Liberty, I don't know how many teams actually play the NBA arena, but it's going to be a lot of NBA arenas being used for when Caitlin comes in town with the fever.
So Bruce made a good point. Candace Parker has a shoe. Let me specify. 3 Nike signature shoes.
Right.
So Nike, let me specify that. So Candace Parker's Adidas. I think Kelsey Plum is Under Armour. So we're talking Nike shoes. Asia Wilson doesn't have her own shoe. He put this in the chat. She doesn't have her own shoe.
Which
So
is
it's
crazy.
just those three.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Which now I think it's one of those things where Asia's got to be next, because I think that's your biggest star in the league right now is Asia Wilson.
I mean, it's only gonna piss she's gonna piss everybody off and really go for this three-peat and shove it down people's throat.
She has not done anything. She's yogurt. She's which is listen.
It's kind of true.
She's just about ball. She's just about ball. She's going to play basketball, and she's not worried about it. That reporter. Go ahead.
She's Tim Duncan of the WNBA.
Perfect example. She's Tim Duncan. The reporter thing that happened with the reporter doing the heart thing, and that whole thing, she kind of just took that and said, okay, whatever. All right. She is safe. Like, the face of women's basketball cannot be Angel Reese.
No.
It is what it is. It could be Cardozo if she stopped fighting everybody. It could be Cameron Brink. It could be others, but Caitlin Clark is the face of women's basketball right now, and I think they like that. They like that. There's no controversy. There's nothing like that. During the draft, I was watching. I wanted to go, but I was like, let me stay home with my wife and kids and not duck out on a Monday night and go to Brooklyn. The crowd seemed really into it. They sold tickets to the event, so they made money on that. You got 2 million people watching the event. And obviously, Caitlin Clark had a lot to do with it. But someone made a good point, too. It's like, they're staying in school. No one's leaving after 1 year and going to WNBA. They're staying 3-4 years.
Yeah, what's her name in USC? She's probably going to be, maybe 2 more years in college before she even jumps to the WNBA?
I know. Haley Van Lith, she's transferring again. So she's going... She went from, and I'm going to get this right, from Louisville to LSU, and now she's going to TCU. So you're having players now not just staying in one place for 3-4 years. They're just moving. So the women are starting to move like the men move and go, yeah, I don't like it here. I know LSU's lost a couple players in the transfer portal already, which we'll talk about later because I have issues with transfer portal, but we'll get to that. So Cameron Brink from Stanford, she went second. Cardozo goes to Chicago. Rakia Jackson goes to the Sparks. J.C. Sheldon goes to Dallas. Aaliyah Edwards to the Mystics. Reese goes to Chicago. Now, I'm curious to see how Reese and Cardozo play together because obviously not the same position, but I could see a lot of I'm trying to think of a Tim Duncan, David Robinson combination in Chicago. Because you got two big players. Cardozo's strictly inside game. She could hit the three. She can step out when necessary. Angel Reese too, but they're going to be grabbing a lot of rebounds and bodying people down. So I think Chicago with Spoon has their coach. And you put that influence of Spoon in them, it's going. Chicago's going to be a beast next year.
Oh, 100%.
So the Liberty, they get in the first round Markeisha Davis from Ole Miss, 8 points a game, 44% from the field. You knew coming in the Liberty weren't going to do anything crazy. The person who they get here may not even make the roster. Come opening night. So it's really just this is a depth move, and maybe hey, maybe we'll find someone diamond in the rough, and they'll be around for later on. Was there anything that caught your eye during the WNBA draft? Obviously, besides the top 5 players.
I was just surprised that Chicago actually pulled the trigger on Angel Reese. I thought she was going to go probably 8 or 9. I was surprised they pulled her up for 7 and paired her off. But other than that, I thought I really thought the Sparks did a good job. I thought obviously Fever did tremendous job picking first, and I just think the quality of the teams now where we see we got the super teams and the Aces and the Liberty, but I think on par you're going to really see every team bring it every night. So I think positioning for the playoffs next season is going to be very difficult.
And I looked at the Fever roster, and obviously the Fever's been bad for a couple of years. So,
but they got good talent on the roster.
I compared it to the Pittsburgh Pirates this year. They're doing really well in baseball. OKC, they're bad for so long. They got these draft picks, and I think you look at someone like an Aaliyah Boston and a Caitlin Clark in Indiana. You have your 1-2. Every WNBA team, I think, wants a 1-2 combination. 3, maybe, if you can get a third person. But Indiana has that 1-2 for a while now. And you see Phoenix falling off. I think eventually you're going to see Connecticut start to fall off a little bit. Those teams that we're used to seeing in the playoff hunt in the playoffs, going deep in the playoffs in the WNBA, I think they're going to fall off. And this is where teams like Indiana, Dallas, they start to step up.
They're going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to make the playoffs.
You think so?
I think the Fever are going to make the playoffs.
Oh, interesting. I wasn't saying that yet.
I gotta, we'll do a WNBA preview. We got a couple more weeks. Which is crazy. I didn't realize the turnaround from the draft to open and tip-off is so short.
Yeah, and there's so many players who aren't playing this season because they're overseas still. So they get – I can't remember the player who came over mid-season after they finished their overseas commitments, but I think this year's like 4 or 5 players who said, I'm not going to bother. I'm going to finish over here, and I'm just going to go home and relax. So that goes back to the pay issue, which is now another conversation that keeps happening. I know Whoopi Goldberg mentioned on The View and how they got to get paid more, and they're working on it, and Sonny Holston, who's like on the board of the WNBA, and I'm like, oh, damn, I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. So hopefully we get to the point where these players don't have to go and play in Australia or in Russia or any place else. They can just play the season here.
This is where Caitlin comes in and bring more eyeballs on the product, and then this is how you expand your negotiation from the time for new TV deals. So you don't get you don't get the Clipper end of the stick when it comes to like picking the time slot and things like that.
Yeah, and you see it now. Like I think the Aces are playing in T-Mobile Arena for their game. Yep. There's another team who's playing in an NBA arena.
The Suns.
The Suns.
The Mercury.
Yeah, the Mercury are playing in Footprint. No, they play Footprint anyway. But I'm saying like teams who are moving from like the smaller venue. Oh, the Mystics. The Mystics are going from their small to the Wizards to Capital One. Capital One Arena.
I was about to say Horizon. That's how long we going back.
Yeah, no, well, and thank God they're staying in DC because they'll move to damn Virginia again. So,
that'd have been scary. That
would suck. Bruce mentioned how the Liberty needs a point guard. There's no fight on that. I think Vandersloot, and he says she's washed. I'm not going to say Vandersloot is washed. But
it's the last year. This is the last year.
Yeah, she is long in the tooth. I'm not going to sit here and debate that. She is long in the tooth. They should have went out and got a point guard to kind of have someone to follow up Vandersloot or even start the process of like, hey, Courtney, you're going to start playing less minutes and we're going to give this person more minutes as the season goes on. So I think that's going to be their only big flaw this year going in. I think they needed another point guard to go with Vandersloot because right now, look at the roster. They really don't have one. I think Johannes is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually forgot Stephanie Dawson left too. She's not there either.
Shit. I didn't realize
so
so it sounds like Sabrina's going to be bringing up most of the ball.
Yeah, which you don't want. I feel like you want her off the ball. You want, See, now I'm looking at the roster now. I'm like, I don't know now. Shit. This may not go well. Holy shit. All right, so that's WNBA Draft. Real quick, I want to finish on this topic because I know we both want to watch AEW tonight. I ordered the pay-per-view, my $50 pay-per-view that I order still. The transfer portal in college basketball, it moves and players are shooting back and forth. We're talking about college basketball, but also you have college football. I think every sport in college, everybody's moving. I was a huge proponent of it before because I thought players should have the same opportunities that coaches have. Calipari just left Kentucky. Mark Pope is out of coach Kentucky, but he left BYU. And now coach from BYU is coming from something else, and this domino effect.
Everybody's moving. Yep.
So, but I'm getting to the point where I think there's too much movement right now in college basketball. Do you agree, or is this just what it is? It's kind of like fair market. This is capitalism. You're going where you can get the biggest bag of NIL money.
Definitely. That's exactly what it is. It's capitalism. You want to follow that NIL money. Maybe they need to shrink the transfer portal a little bit. Maybe not have it so long and extended. But yeah, you can't. It's fair market trade. Everyone's out here trying to get a buck. I get it. You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, I just because I didn't realize they opened it up until obviously, I think the day after the NCAA selections show. Mm-hmm. They opened it up that Monday. So that Monday after the teams were picked for the tournament. And that's why a lot of teams didn't even bother going to the NIT because they're like, well, everyone's going to leave anyway because no one wants to play the NIT. A lot of my guys are going to transfer. Who cares?
Why am I doing it?
Yeah, so why not open the window after all the postseason tournaments are over? And the window's literally open for 1 month.
Mm-hmm.
And you got 1 month to make the decision, go back and forth. There's guys who have still made a decision yet. I think my wife there's two players my wife used to teach in middle school in the Bronx. They're both at LSU. The one already transferred. The other one, she's still kind of transferring, but she's not really kind of doing undercover. It's April 21st. Like, at some point, you have to make a decision and go someplace, because your decision is going to affect someone else. And then when you come in, that other player is going to be like, well, I'm going to lose my spot, so I'm going to go chat. I feel like there's too much movement. I agree with the NCAA at this point. I think there's a spring and a fall portal. I think they both need to be shrunken down to force the players to make the decisions right away. Because right now they're shopping themselves, which, once again, no big deal. But at some point, you got to slow this shit down. Because, one, you're losing viewership because no one knows who's on the team.
Right.
That's why the women, people care more about the women's game because they're seeing them develop from freshman, sophomore, junior, and then they'll probably follow them to WNBA.
UConn won back-to-back championships, and no one knows anybody in the roster.
Yeah. Like, everyone knew who Gordon Hayward was because he was with Butler. They went to the national championship game twice in 2 years, and everyone knew who he was when he came out because he was on TV in March Madness. Cooper Flagg is going to Duke next year. Great. How long is he staying at Duke? Before he goes either to the NBA or he hates John Shire and he goes to Missouri or some shit.
You're right, because I think two players already transferred out of Duke already. So you're right.
So I think this is my old man moment where I'm like, no, the kids need to stop. And,
stay in school.
You commit. You commit. That's right. Bruce believes that there should be a transfer portal between AEW, which there already is. They kind of go back and forth. So,
I know
what did AEW do?
AEW made a transfer portal, and that was Lana.
What? What did AEW do to you, Bruce? I feel like they did something bad to you. Like, what they do to you, man? Because there's way too much AEW hate coming from your heart. I don't know what they did to you. Real quick update before we leave. Third quarter, 83-64 Milwaukee on top of Indiana. As 2:53 left in the third quarter. 9:30 OKC starts their series with New Orleans in OKC, who is up for a new arena. I'm like, didn't their arena just get built?
OKC?
Yeah, they get a new building.
Well, no, I mean, I feel like they came in with already built building, the cheesecake, whatever it's called. The cheapskate, whatever. I forgot what it's called.
The cheapskate.
Something like that. But I feel like they do for an upgrade.
I'm like that with what stadium was like that with the I think the Texas Rangers got a new stadium in baseball, and I'm like, did they?
Oh yeah, I remember.
The stadium's only 20 years old. Like, I feel like stadium should. Yeah, they it's like a football field now. It's like a football stadium. UFF plays there, but I'm also like, you have to give stadiums 50 years because you want to add to it and make changes to it, and like obviously you want to make it better. But 20 years and they get a new building, especially the Atlanta Stadium when they left Turner Field and went to where they are now, and that was some undercover.
Which is also still there.
Yeah, which is also a football stadium, Georgia State. So, anywho, totally off topic. Jason, as always, great show, man.
Likewise.
So, there will be no show on Thursday. I will be at MetLife for the Giants draft party again, and hopefully they don't piss me off this year and pick J.J. McCarthy.
Oh, God. Go get the receiver from LSU and don't mess this up.
The rumors about J.J. McCarthy going to the Giants, and obviously Joe Shane didn't say anything when he spoke to him, and he's just like, yeah, we're good with Daniel. And in my head, I'm like, no, you're not. You don't like Daniel Jones. This is not your guy. And the rumor is they really like J.J. McCarthy, and I'm like, God, don't pick, especially not 6.
Yeah,
like don't do that. So I will be at MetLife Stadium on Thursday. Next Sunday we'll be back. Bulletins has warranted. This is playoff season, so me and Jason need to pop on a random Wednesday. We will be on here on a random Wednesday to talk. Yes, Bruce. See you in May. No, not May. April 28th. That's next Sunday. 7 days. So for Jason, I'm Kahlil. Thanks so much for watching, listening. Next Sunday, 8 p.m., April 28th, we'll be back here on YouTube and Spotify and all that good stuff. All right? Peace.
This has been The Box Out with Kahlil Thomas and Jason Cordner. Subscribe now for the best tri-state area basketball talk.